Americans can name Washington, they can name Jefferson, but the revolution was won by roughly 200,000 people, and this country has let most of their graves rot into silence. We're counting down 10 of those forgotten burial sites, from battlefield sharpshooters reduced to memorial plaques, to enslaved spies whose graves have no public marker at all. Soldiers, women, black patriots, indigenous warriors, each one bled for a nation that then looked away. The deeper we go, the more complete the erasure becomes. At number 10, a legendary marksman whose shot changed the course of the entire Northern campaign. In the 10th place, Timothy Murphy steadied his rifle in the chaos of Saratoga, sighting across the smoke-choked field as British officers barked commands. The shot that followed, by legend his alone, dropped General Simon Fraser and, moments later, Sir Francis Clerke. Their deaths sent panic through the British line and turned the tide of the Northern campaign. Murphy's skill in Morgan's rifle corps became revolutionary folklore, his name whispered in the same breath as the battle itself. But the man behind the myth left little behind. No grand monument, no family plot for descendants to tend. Today, visitors to Saratoga National Historic Park find only a memorial plaque, not a headstone, not a grave. His remains are unmarked, his burial site lost to the churn of history and the rootwork of the wild. Murphy's battlefield legend outlived his body, reduced now to commemorative stone and the fading echo of a single, fateful shot. The country he helped save remembers the myth, but the grave is missing, setting the baseline for how even the most storied sacrifice can slip into neglect. Number 9. Isaac Ormsby stands in the shadows of Saratoga's aftermath, a young man in the 1st Rhode Island Regiment who shouldered his pack and marched for the Oswego expedition. His war ended not with a hero's welcome, but with a long walk home on blistered feet. No parade, no pension, just the quiet return to rural New York. Ormsby's story is written in muster rolls and whispered in the soil of Saratoga County, where his grave lies hidden in the Ormsby family cemetery. The stone that marks his sacrifice is half swallowed by earth, its inscription nearly erased, saplings pressing in from all sides. Private land has become a barrier, keeping out not only vandals, but also memory itself. No registry, no preservation grant, no descendant to clear the brush. Here, the cost of liberty is measured in neglect. A freedom veteran's final resting place disappearing beneath weeds and indifference. The country he helped build has let his grave vanish, a quiet indictment of how easily ordinary sacrifice is forgotten when no one is left to keep watch. 8th place, Lydia Dara listens in the candlelit parlor of her Philadelphia home, heart pounding as British officers plot a secret assault on Washington's army. In December 1777, she slips past enemy lines under the pretense of buying flour, carrying nothing but her Quaker resolve and the knowledge that thousands of lives hang on her courage. Dara's warning reaches Washington in time, helping the Continental Army avoid disaster. Yet her heroism survives mostly in the shadows, preserved in family letters and whispered stories, not in official dispatches or military rolls. The city she risked everything to save has all but erased her from its streets. Dara's original grave marker vanished in the chaos of 19th century redevelopment, swept aside by progress and indifference. Today, only a bronze plaque from the Daughters of the American Revolution hints at her resting place in Christ Church Cemetery, and even that marks only an approximation. Her grave is not just neglected, it is lost, overwritten by the city's relentless churn. Dara's story is emblematic of how women's wartime contributions, vital, dangerous, and unrecorded, are preserved in fragments, if at all. The silence around her burial site is a silence imposed by history itself, a nation's memory narrowed to a handful of names while the rest are left to fade. Number 7. Deborah Sampson tightens the straps of her borrowed pack in the pre-dawn chill, heart pounding as she prepares to march out with the 4th Massachusetts Regiment. Disguised as Robert Shaw, she steps into the line of men, risking everything for a country that would not allow her to serve under her own name. For 17 months, Sampson fights, bleeds, and endures alongside her fellow soldiers, surviving wounds at Tarrytown and Yorktown, only to be discovered after illness exposes her secret in a Philadelphia hospital. Instead of dismissal, she is quietly reassigned as a nurse and courier, her usefulness outweighing the scandal of her gender. After the war, she petitions for and wins a military pension, the first woman in American history to do so, thanks to the testimony of Paul Revere himself. Yet the nation she served so fiercely has been slow to honor her memory. Her grave at Rock Ridge Cemetery in Sharon, Massachusetts, stands marked only by a weathered slate headstone, the inscription fading as vines and thicket reclaim the plot. The site is neither lost nor celebrated, a liminal space where history's neglect is plain to see. Gender bias has long shaped how Sampson's story is told. Her heroism relegated to footnotes, while grander names fill the monuments. The overgrown grave is a silent rebuke, a reminder that those who broke the rules to serve their country are still waiting for the nation to catch up to their courage. Number 6. Prince Whipple stands at the heart of the contradiction that shaped the Revolution. Picture the Delaware Campaign, a black man, enslaved yet armed, riding beside General William Whipple as both bodyguard and soldier. His presence on the battlefield was no accident. He fought at Saratoga, marched through bitter cold, and, in 1779, put his name to a petition demanding freedom for New Hampshire's enslaved. That document survives, proof of black political agency at a time when liberty was a slogan rarely meant for all. Yet after the war, the narrative closed around the general he once served. Prince Whipple was manumitted in 1784, but the histories that followed centered the officer, not the man who fought for a freedom he never truly received. Today, his grave sits in Old North Cemetery in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. The headstone is weathered, its inscription half lost to rain and lichen, easy to overlook among grander memorials. Local volunteers note that the stone is only partly legible, vegetation pressing in from all sides. While the city's founders are celebrated, Whipple's sacrifice is left to fade in the shadow of the very ideals he risked his life for. The stone stands as a silent rebuke, a nation built on liberty, still struggling to remember those who fought hardest for a freedom denied. In the 5th place, Agrippa Hull marches into the Revolution, not as a footnote, but as a man whose every step is documented in the very records that built the nation. He enlists in 1777 from Stockbridge, Massachusetts, serving first under Major General John Patterson and later as orderly to Tadeusz Kościuszko, the Polish engineer whose plans shaped the American defense. Hull stands at Freeman's Farm, bracing through the chaos as musket fire tears the air, his presence recorded in muster rolls, his endurance at Valley Forge etched in the memory of those who survived. In 1783, a discharge certificate signed by George Washington himself confirms his service, and decades later, an 1818 pension application spells out the details in his own hand. No other forgotten hero on this list leaves behind such a solid paper trail, a rare clarity in a war so often blurred by myth. Yet the records outlast the remembrance. In Stockbridge Cemetery, Hull's grave is marked by a slate slab, now cracked and heavy with lichen, its inscription fading into obscurity. For generations, no state marker, no grand memorial, no local legend kept watch. Only in 2021 did a modest plaque appear, placed by a historical society that recognized what the nation would not. That a black veteran who served beside generals and engineers could be erased from public memory, even as his name survives in the archives. Hull's story exposes the gap between what is preserved in paper and what is honored in stone. Yet his grave remains a silent indictment, a measure of how easily the country forgets those who bled for a freedom they were so often denied. Number 4. The smoke and thunder of Bunker Hill hang heavy as Peter Salem steadies his musket behind the battered redoubt. A British officer, Major John Pitcairn, rises above the chaos, rallying his men for one final charge. In that instant, Salem, once enslaved in Framingham, now a free man in the ranks, takes aim and fires the shot that brings Pitcairn down. Eyewitnesses later credit Salem for this act, a moment that momentarily halts the British advance and electrifies the battered militia. Yet, as the revolution moves on, Salem's name is reduced to a footnote, often replaced by the label colored or omitted entirely from the grand retelling of the nation's birth. Salem's service does not end at Bunker Hill. He fights on through the northern campaigns, his name appearing in muster rolls at Harlem Heights, Trenton, Saratoga, and Stony Point. Discharged in 1780, he returns to a quiet life as a weaver, denied the pensions and accolades that flowed freely to others. The nation he helped forge remembers the battle, but not the man. Instead of a marble monument or a place in school books, Salem's grave at Church Hill Cemetery in Framingham sits on a lonely slope, its granite headstone tilted, the inscription weathered, grass and weeds pressing in from all sides. The stone is legible, but the site is ringed by overgrowth, a stark emblem of how easily a life of sacrifice can be swallowed by time and neglect. Salem's story is a study in erasure, a hero's name displaced by racial labels, his memory pushed to the margins while larger figures fill the monuments and the textbooks. The grave remains, battered but standing, a silent challenge to the country that owes him so much. In the end, the freedom Salem fought for came at a price he paid in full, yet the nation's memory has not paid its debt in return. Coming to the top 3, the spring of 1778 finds Valley Forge on the edge of starvation. The Continental Army, gaunt and desperate, owes its survival not to a general, but to a quiet act of sustenance led by Polly Cooper, a Oneida woman whose name rarely appears in the official dispatches. She walks alongside a convoy of Oneida and Seneca, hauling baskets of white corn through mud and snow, hundreds of miles from their homeland to Washington's camp. But Cooper's service does not end with delivery. She stays, grinding kernels into meal, showing soldiers how to prepare hulled corn soup that will not sicken them, ladling hope into battered hands. Her work is not the stuff of battlefield legend, but of daily rescue, measured in lives saved, not enemies slain. Yet, when the war ends and the new nation writes its history, Cooper's name is nearly erased. The official records praise a grateful alliance with the Oneida, but the details blur. When she dies, there is no headstone, no solitary marker to honor her. Instead, her remains lie somewhere beneath the Oneida Scout's grave at St. Peter's Cemetery in Lafayette Hill, Pennsylvania. A modern monument stands above, inscribed with a collective tribute, Oneida Scouts. But the individual graves are unmarked, the names lost beneath the stone. Cooper is present, yet absent, remembered only as part of a group, her singular sacrifice folded into a footnote of tribal memory. This is how indigenous women's labor is treated by the nation they helped save, recognized only in the aggregate, their personal stories left to vanish beneath the grass. The grave is silent, the monument broad but impersonal, a stark reminder that the country's freedom was built on acts of generosity it has yet to properly remember. Number 2, the story of Jacob Alawistonis slips between the cracks of American memory, beginning not on a battlefield of marble monuments, but along the blood-soaked trails near Oriskany in 1777. Picture the chaos. Oneida warriors fighting alongside patriot militia, gunpowder thick in the air, the forest echoing with musket fire. Alawistonis, remembered as a blacksmith and fighter, stands among them, his presence preserved not in colonial dispatches, but in the oral history of his people. While the victory at Oriskany is credited in textbooks to generals and militia leaders, the Oneida role, decisive, sacrificial, was reduced in the records to a faceless line: friendly Indians. After the war, Alawistonis' name surfaces in Oneida Peace Council minutes, a faint echo of his continued service in the fragile years that followed. But when it comes to his final resting place, the trail vanishes. There is no headstone, no surviving map, not even a weathered marker. The only clue is a family plot somewhere near the grounds of Fort Stanwix State Historic Site, land that once belonged to the Oneida, but passed out of their hands through broken treaties and relentless dispossession. The meadow is maintained as a historical area, but the exact spot where Alawistonis lies is undocumented, unmarked, and for most, unknowable. This is not just a story of neglect, but of erasure, of how colonial record-keeping stripped indigenous fighters of their names, and land loss severed the last physical ties to their memory. Alawistonis' grave is missing in every sense, removed from maps, absent from stone, remembered only in the stories passed down by his descendants. The country that owed its survival to the Oneida Alliance has allowed the evidence of that debt to disappear into the grass. The freedom won at Oriskany cost more than blood. It cost a people their history, their land, and even the right to mark their dead. And finally, in first place, James Armistead Lafayette stands at the crossroads of secrecy and erasure, his life a study in contradiction. In the final desperate months before Yorktown, he moved unseen among British camps, an enslaved man whose apparent invisibility became his greatest weapon. Posing as a loyalist servant, Armistead gathered British war plans and troop movements, slipping coded messages to the Marquis de Lafayette. The intelligence he delivered, quietly at great personal risk, helped trap Cornwallis and force the surrender that ended the war. Yet the country he helped to birth met his service with silence. Freedom was not granted as a matter of course. Armistead had to petition Virginia's legislature, his case argued by Lafayette himself before emancipation was won. Even then, the new nation's gratitude extended only so far. Armistead lived out his days as a free farmer in New Kent County, Virginia. But when death came, there was no public ceremony, no marble marker, no parade of dignitaries. His grave sits on private land, its location known only to family, marked by a simple fieldstone and a brass plaque, modest, easily overlooked, inaccessible to all but a determined few. There is no cemetery registry, no state monument, no annual wreath-laying. The secrecy that once protected his mission now shrouds his memory, deepened by the country's long habit of forgetting black patriots who bought its freedom at the highest price. No grave on this list better captures the painful paradox of American independence. A nation built on the courage of the invisible, content to let their resting places vanish into fields and silence. The debt owed to James Armistead Lafayette is written not only in lost headstones, but in the nation's ongoing refusal to remember those who secured its liberty. Across all 10 graves, one infuriating pattern endures. The nation that demanded sacrifice from so many is content to let their final resting places rot. Black, indigenous, and women heroes, erased because their stories complicate our myths, still lie in silence. National memory is not just about glory, it's about responsibility. Freedom was never free, and these graves demand we finally remember who paid the price.